conversation was becoming or getting out of control. This particular challenge happens often in the world of leadership. And in this video today, I want to tell you or share with you one secret that will help you to gain control of a conversation if it starts to find itself becoming out of control. And I do want to encourage you to watch this video until the end, because there's one main secret I want to focus in on for you today to help you gain control of a conversation, but there's a possibility we may talk about a few more secrets, and you will not know them unless you watch the video until the end. If you are new to me, welcome, and if you are one of my absolutely amazing subscribers, welcome back, friend. This channel heavily focuses in on advanced communication skills and strategies that will help you to develop an unfair competitive advantage as it relates to how you communicate as a leader. It will automatically help you to stand out in those high stakes, very high pressure situations. I want to first apologize to my audience because I typically go live a bit earlier in the morning, but just so happened today is my daughter's birthday and I left both my phones at home, which is the reason why I am delayed today. So I am sorry about that, but of course, you know I'm going to come back and be here to support you. Let me go to the chat. Cat23, hello friend, how you doing today? Cat23 says, I'm one of the absolutely amazing subscribers. Heart, hey dog. High five, Cat. Good to see you, friend. You are one of the amazing subscribers, Cat. Absolutely. You know that, and I appreciate you so much for all of the valuable insights that you contribute to the channel. When it comes to having, and thank you for the heart emojis, friends. When it comes to having a conversation that's going out of control, I would like to know from you, have you ever been in a situation where you felt like a conversation was starting to go in a different direction, or it felt like it was getting out of control? Put it in the comments below. When these situations happen, you have to gain control. And a lot of times as leaders, I've seen out of control conversations happen when there's a high stakes discussion, which is what we talk about specifically here on this channel in terms of how to navigate those situations. Feel free to subscribe to the channel if you want to learn a lot more about that. But most of the time there is something at risk. There is something that is at risk. People are at a very heightened emotional state. They may be frustrated, they may be angry, they may be tired, they may be sad, all of the above. And typically in those situations, that's when the conversation goes out of control. I've often seen it go out of control also when there is a polarizing issue. So no one may be frustrated, no one may be upset, no one may be angry, but there may be a significant difference in appearance or in thought process that someone has as it relates to a particular issue or their stance on the issue, and etc. I have seen conversations go out of control because people are so passionate about their view that they want to continue talking about it. So when these situations happen, and it will happen to you as a leader, one of the secrets I want to share with you, and as I mentioned, there's multiple secrets that can help you gain control of a conversation. We talk a lot about them on the channel, but if I had one that I would say, if you are in a situation and the conversation is going out of control, what is the one aspect that I would do first is I would change my tone of voice. That would be the first one. And it doesn't necessarily have to mean the conversation is a negative conversation. It could be something that you're really excited about. But I found that the other strategies I share with you in terms of eye contact, facial expressions, they are all very critically important in gaining control of a conversation. But the first part that someone is going to pick up on immediately is your tone of voice. You're going to audibly hear what you have to say. And then the other aspects or the other strategies I share with you in terms of eye contact, facial expressions, all of that will come into play as well. All right, let me go to the chat. Cat23 says, yes, I've been there multiple times. It was when a group of friends and I placed something in things tend to escalate because all we had different approaches to the plan. I played peacemaker like always. Of course, Kat, I know that you did. And Kat, you bring up a great example. And this happens, just as you mentioned. In your specific case, the conversation started to escalate. Why? Because there were different approaches or different viewpoints as it relates to how to resolve this specific issue. being the peacemaker, as Kat is, and Kat, as Kat mentioned, is always the peacemaker. A great way to do that is to think about how you communicate on a consistent basis, your tone of voice, understand your baseline, and changing it. Either you lower it, you may increase it. That doesn't mean you're yelling. It's just the depth of your voice may be different. I would say, to give you an example, and this is a conversation that was, there's two ways I've approached chaotic conversations when they just go in a different direction and they go out of control. Depending on the context, I will approach it in a professional way if it seems like there is truly a true disagreement, or ask a question, what is the real issue here? And I say it in a tone of voice that is slightly different from my baseline. My baseline is the way I speak normally, as many of you watching the channel. And for those of you watching, welcome. Let me know what part of the big, beautiful world you are joining from today. And if you've ever been in a conversation that got out of control, put it in the comments below. But I would say, what is the real issue here? To try to be that peacemaker, as Kat already mentioned. Trying to be the peacemaker is very important. Now, another way that I have addressed and changed my tone of voice when it comes to conversations that are going out of control is when the conversation that is happening is completely ridiculous. And I mean completely ridiculous. That one party is talking about something that makes no sense. The other party is talking about something that doesn't make any sense. I will pull out a come on in just a second. I'll be like, come on, everybody. Let's figure out how can we come together. That's if it just comes across as completely ridiculous. I change my tone of voice because people know that I normally would not say that. But if something is just so ridiculous, you get to the point where you want to let the audience know, look, this doesn't make sense. Let's figure out how we can make it make sense. Your tone of voice is going to be critically important. All right, let me go to the chat. Let me see. I'm driving and Asafin the Ruins. Hello, welcome. Says, good morning. It's a pleasure to meet you here. Your English is excellent. Well, thank you, friend. I appreciate you being here. This channel heavily focuses in on high stakes communication. And if you want to be able to master how you communicate under pressure in the English language, this is absolutely the best channel on YouTube to join, friend. I have over 1,100 videos here on this channel that are dedicated to high stakes communication. So I appreciate your comment and would be happy to see you on another video also. Cat23 says, I treat all situations professionally, even though it's a casual or informal environment. Yes, and that is very important. You have to still maintain be professional. Sometimes what I've seen that happens is when people are in those situations where they are trying to identify what's going on in the conversation, they may say something along the lines of trying to, I wouldn't say necessarily be the peacemaker, but they're trying to make themselves look more important than what they really need to be at that particular moment. And you don't want to do that either. And what I've seen happens a lot of times is that people will be unprofessional in those situations. I've seen people say things that are maybe a bit more biased to one party compared to the other, and you don't necessarily want to do that. You want to be as professional, as unbiased as you can be. And as Kat mentioned, you want to be the peacemaker. You want to be the person that is somewhat of the moderator of the situation, which is the reason why when it's a heated debate, just as Kat mentioned earlier today, for some of you that just joined, she was in a situation or a conversation that went out of control, and she served as the role as a peacemaker. And what happened is there was a difference in approach in terms of how to address a plan or a topic or whatever they were working on specifically. And the conversation went out of control. When there's a difference in approach, you still want to communicate in a professional way, but your tone of voice is critical. If you come across that situation and you communicate in a very stern, affirmative, forceful type of way, it will completely put gas on fire in the conversation, because then the other people, you have person one that's not happy or have a heated debate with someone else. You have person two that has a heated debate, and then you come in and put gas on it, essentially. Your tone of voice is really important. So make sure when you are in those situations, as I mentioned, there's a lot of ways you can gain control of a conversation. Subscribe to the channel to learn more about those. But a great way to start is your tone of voice. Make sure your tone of voice is in a way that adds peace to the room, as Kat mentioned, but helps to calm down the room as well. Majority of the time in those situations, you are going to want to lower your voice, but not lower it to where you're whispering, but lower the depth of your voice so that it's a bit lower than your baseline. You may want to speak a bit softer in those situations so that either party, even though they may be upset here, upset there, and they hear someone that's not upset, it helps them to focus a bit more. Because a lot of times what I've noticed is that when people are very upset, very passionate, thank you for the heart emojis, friends, when they feel very passionate about something, they're, I don't like this, and I don't like this, and I don't like this, and I don't like this. It becomes somewhat of a elevated screaming match. Maybe not full scream, but you know someone has raised their voice and they're not happy. Hearing someone be calm will help them. And as I mentioned earlier, I gave an example what I would do in situations where there's a different approach, as Kat mentioned, or people are highly polarized about a topic. I would say in a softer voice than I normally would, what is the real issue here? What is the real problem? What do you both think we can do as solutions? Something along those lines. Now, your choice of words, what you say it, when you say it, all of that factors into how to gain control of a conversation. But in this video, I wanted to give you the very first secret to that, and that is going to be monitor your tone of voice. Your tone of voice has to be a bit different. I would highly recommend to lower it or soften it compared to your normal baseline so that people tell a difference. I mentioned to you also, if the conversation, if you are with, let's say you're senior leaders and you're with your executives and you all have a very good relationship with each other, you can have those conversations with them and you can tell them, hey, what's going on? What is the problem here? You can have a bit more, not of a lax communication with them. It's definitely still more professional, but there's just your tone of voice is the key to bringing light to a situation. You can bring humor to a heated debate as long as it's not something that is deeply polarizing. As I mentioned, when you're in leadership roles or in, say, senior executive leadership roles, we deal with some serious issues, but then there's some stuff that happens that is just silly. And I'm being honest with you, it's just silly. You have to be able to manage and navigate those deeply sensitive topics and the topics that are a bit silly. That is okay if you have a little bit of humor too. Okay, Cat 2030 says, what happens when your peacemaker role is still not enough? How do you work with that? I'm going to take a screenshot of that because I'm probably going to need to talk about that at a different time to go in more detail of that. But I'll say overall, just as a good point of reference, when you're in that situation and your role is not enough, and what do you do in that scenario? There's definitely more I want to talk about that, Cat. So you know, friend, I'm going to do a video for you and give you a shout out for sure. But as something to get you started, in those situations, you'll have to try your best to get the two parties in agreement on something. There has to be something that they agree upon. It could be something very minor. It could be, I agree that we need to document this. I mean, it has to be something minor. There has to be one aspect of this conversation that you can use as a way to bring everybody together to say, okay, I know we, for instance, if you were in healthcare, we all care about patients. Or if you're in finance, we all care about making money. If you are in the college industry, you care about our students. There's multiple ways. There's something that you can do to bring everybody together. Now, Kat, I will do a video for you, and I definitely will talk about that next week for sure. But there's a lot more that can go into these situations when being a peacemaker is simply not enough. Because sometimes the conversations are too heated where there's not much that you can do. But we'll go into that more, Kat, for sure. All right, Kat says, sending my birthday wishes, by the way. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. My daughter appreciates that also. I appreciate you all so much. And once again, I apologize for not being live at my normal time. But because I was situated and getting my daughter ready for her birthday, I completely forgot both of my phones at home. And I just went back to go get them. So I appreciate you all so much. Thank you for the heart emojis, friends. I will not be live this evening, but I will be live tomorrow evening. And I will see you all in the next